Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the ninth interview blog in our series. And we're really excited today. We've dealt with hundreds of businesses over the years now, and what we do know is that a very small minority of them actually have any idea what their current levels of engagement are. And engagement sits in our employee 9-step life cycle at number 6, and it's one of my favorite areas. And I think for me, a lot of businesses don't understand what the motivation levels of their team are. They don't understand measure of discretionary effort and even how you would measure it if you wanted to. But the reality is that organisations with high levels of engagement and enablement, for that matter, outperform their competitors. So to discuss this and much, much more, we're really thrilled to interview Burke from 6Q. Welcome, Miles.
Thank you, Natasha. So lovely to be here.
Good, good. Well, let's get straight into it. Let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you get to be sitting opposite me today?
Okay, that's a long and windy path between then and now, I guess. What I've found, I've been running creative and technical teams for the best part of the last 25 years, and I run another business that I've been working in for the last 18 years. And what I've discovered over that time is the most important thing that I can do to maximise the value of my business is ensure that my team are happy and engaged and passionate about what they do. So 6Q sort of was born out of that. What I've done over the years is I've found that in a team of 20-ish, the best way to keep the engagement and passion high is to have these weekly one-on-ones with everyone. And as you can imagine, 20 staff, 5 or 10 minutes a pop isn't too onerous on my week, but you multiply that to 100 and there's no chance that a CEO or a managing director is going to be able to do that. So we looked at a variety of different ways to help bolster these face-to-face meetings and various other activities that I do, and we came up with this idea of surveying the team every week. So it was literally born to solve our own purpose, to help our own problem.
Isn't that great when businesses evolve to that point? It's like, I have a problem, I'm just going to solve it, and there may be another business out of it. That's great. So why should business owners actually understand, or for that matter, measure a team's level of engagement?
Okay, so there's plenty of studies out there that I could refer to showing, increased profitability, increased productivity. But what it boils down to, I guess, is the morale within the team, the motivation and the passion that they have for whatever they're doing. The most important thing that you can do as a leader is to ensure that they understand the mission, where you're heading, what your vision for the business is, and what part do they play in that overall vision. That's one of the leading things that I've found anyway, is to explain to an employee, you are important in our team because of X, Y, and Z. And as soon as they get that, they're far more motivated, they're more likely to put in that extra effort. What we've found through numerous studies out there is it reduces sick time, it reduces employee turnover. My other business is in digital marketing, and what a typical life cycle for an employee in our industry is only 2 or 3 years. We celebrate 7-year anniversaries regularly. Our average tenure here is over 5 years now amongst staff members that I have, and people enjoy coming to work each morning. In fact, we always tell the story, well, the team tells the story where I threatened to fire somebody for working every weekend. So,
yes, that would not be good. And if they had a partner, the partner would not be happy and be very happy with you for doing that. So how frequently should we measure this? I know a lot of businesses, they do it annually, and I think that's too retrospective. It's too difficult for them to remember what's happening. What's your advice there?
Yes, so I spoke to a customer a while back that has moved their annual survey to 6Q, and what they were talking about was it took around 4 to 6 weeks to write up the questions for their annual survey, and then it took up to 12 weeks to get the results back. So by the time the results came in, any underlying pressures within the business or the morale have far extrapolated in that 12-week period. So that, that's absolutely useless in the broad picture of trying to be more responsive with your team. I personally do this every week with my team. I survey the team and I ask them a small set of questions. It only takes them a minute and a half to complete. And then we have face-to-face meetings after that as well. So it actually bolsters my face-to-face. Typically, across all our customers, it tends to be about fortnightly, seems
to be the magic.
But certainly no less than quarterly, in my opinion.
Okay. And what's deemed to be a good result? You know, if you talk about an engagement score, what should people be aiming for?
Yeah, so that's always a tricky one. The first thing I always recommend is get a baseline. So start using 6Q before you do any other activities whatsoever, so you get a sense of how the morale and the engagement is. We have in our tool a benchmarking process, so we actually show in the reports how you are compared to the rest of our customers. The benchmarks are typically around the low 80% marks, which is great for a business. If you're in the 90% and above, that would be amazing. If you're 100%, that's a problem in itself, in the sense that I would estimate that many of your employees are just answering the way they feel you want to hear.
Exactly. And yeah, that's a really interesting one. And do you benchmark from a global perspective or an Australian perspective?
At the moment, it's global. And the reason for that, I guess, is when we started 6Q, I had this crazy vision that it would be mostly Australian businesses and mostly SMEs like myself. And what's turned out is Australia is actually only our third biggest market. So Europe and the US far outdo Australia for our customer base. What we're in the process of doing now is starting to segment all our customers into their industry and location, with the aim eventually of being able to say, okay, you're in Australia, we'll compare you against other Australian customers.
And do you have any views, and you may not have this information, on how many businesses in Australia, what percentage actually measure this? I would imagine it's quite small. I think the big corporates do it, but in the SME space, I don't come across a lot of businesses.
No, and you know we seem to trail, when it comes to employee engagement and culture building and that sort of thing, we seem to trail the US by a few years. There was a study on LinkedIn a while back about the amount of roles on LinkedIn with culture manager or people and culture manager has been their role title. Last year, it was hundreds of thousands of people in the US with that title. In Australia, it was under 1,000. But even that has grown from under 100 only 2 or 3 years ago. So the future is looking very good that this will filter down to SMEs.
Which I'm hopeful for. What are some of the signs of poor levels of engagement in an organisation? So someone listening to this interview blog can go, "Ooh, that sounds like my business."
Yes. So we've written plenty of blog posts about this, but I guess one of the key measures is I always look around at my team, and particularly first thing in the morning, do they walk in with a smile? Are they saying good morning to their colleagues, or are they dragging themselves in at the last minute and grumbling and sitting at their desk? So that's obviously one sign, a very obvious one. What we've noticed is, are you fostering an environment where people are helping each other? So I've got a problem finishing this report. Natasha jumped in and helped me finish it. That was great. That's a sign that engagement is going well. If I'm in a position where the printer's broken, I'm asking for help and nobody's putting their hand up, that's a sign of low engagement. It is it is tricky, particularly in remote teams, to be able to measure that. We have a number of businesses now, a number of customers that their teams are entirely disparate around the world. And what we're doing there is we're looking at the sentiment in their various video and text chats and that sort of thing to get a sense of how the engagement is amongst their team.
So if you are in one of those businesses with low levels of engagement, what are some of the implications of being in that space?
Yes, so if you have low engagement, you'll find that your staff turnover rate is far greater. You'll find that on average, the amount of sick days taken amongst your team is far higher than a far more engaged team. What studies have shown is that there's a 20 to 22% lift in profitability amongst those that have engaged teams. So it really comes down to the dollars and cents as well at the end of the day. But more importantly, it sounds very cliche, but every business, the asset really is the people, the team amongst them. I certainly wouldn't be in the position I am had it not been the team that supports me and helps me.
I
and I'm
would
sure
say exactly the same, Miles.
Yes, you feel very similar. So we were very lucky in hiring the right people, but it's a calculated process to ensure that you keep the engagement high and you listen to them. You understand what their concerns and the roadblocks are, and you help them find ways to overcome those and understand the bigger picture.
So if an organisation does have low levels of engagement, what are some ways that you've seen businesses tackle that to try and lift their results?
Yes. So one of the customers we have has a number of different outlets in various cities across the US. What they discovered through segmenting their employees in our tool was there were 5 or 6 of these outlets that were particularly low in engagement. And what they did was they actually sent people from the head office out there to spend a week at these locations and spend some quality time workshopping what are the issues that the team feels that they're having trouble with and how can the head office better support them. They also did some one-on-one training with management at those locations to say, okay, this is how you need to address these things. And work on those as well. But in a SME environment where we only have 10 to 20 staff, one of the first steps I always recommend is get the team together and ask them, let's use a whiteboard right now and put up what are the key challenges this business or this team faces, and how can we as a collective work on fixing these. So rather than this us and them attitude between management and employees, I'm just one of the team here. I don't have all the answers. That's why I hire others.
I always say that. Our collective wisdom is better than, our individual parts by all means. A lot of my team are more senior than I am. They've got more experience than I have. So
exactly.
Okay. So I as an interviewer, I love questions. What are your favourite questions that you really think produce the best insights? I know you have a whole bank of them that you can choose, and I think there's some value. And I know we've done some changing of our questions as our business has matured or going through periods of change. What are your favourite questions to get really into the insight of how your employees feel about you?
Yes. So that's a really interesting one. I always recommend that customers start with some broad questions to begin with, and then based on the responses that are coming in, they dig down a bit further. One of my favourites is, would you recommend a colleague to work here? It's not suggesting that I'm actually looking for your colleague to work here, but the idea is, would you recommend a person in the industry to work here? If they say no, that's a sign that something's wrong within the organisation. So that's one. The happiness or any emotive questions are great. Are you happy at work? I've had times where I've had staff write, no, I'm not. And then in further analysis, it turns out they're talking about the broader life, work and everything else. But, are you happy in the role that you're currently in? Are you happy with the team you're in? These sort of questions really get an emotive response from people, and that's really helpful.
And I think too, you know, what I love about it is you can start to segment, and you may find that there's a particular area and a particular manager where everybody's not happy. And that can be a very clear indication of some further work that's required there. Miles, we're hearing more and more in our corporate world about employee experience. You know, it used to be the customer experience, and now we're talking about the employee experience. What does that mean to you?
Yes. So the employee experience actually starts right back at the very beginning before they're even an employee. It's the recruitment process. How do you handle applicants? How do you handle rejections? How do you handle the onboarding process? So it starts from the very beginning there. What we do is we have an actual book. I should have had one ready to hold up, a 40 to 50 page book on what it means to work here and what is the culture we're trying to build. So our onboarding, we spend a day on the technical know-how of their role, but then we spend an equal day on the culture and what it means to be part of the team here. It's very important for me that everyone understands what our values are, what our mission is. So it's that process from the very beginning through performance review processes, team meetings, all of those things, right through to the exit, whether it be an employee-driven exit or a management-driven one. How is the experience overall? So if I'm disengaged and I don't believe in the brand or the business that I'm working for, how am I able to present a great customer experience? It really comes back to, at the end of the day, we're here to service and support our customers. But if we don't start looking inwards first, there's always going to be a challenge there.
And tell me, Miles, what do you love about what you do?
Probably my favourite thing would be that I get to speak to people throughout the globe. Sometimes 2 a.m., which is not my favourite time of day to be on calls or videos, but what I found is that I enjoy, the insights that they bring me from their different cultural backgrounds, their different industries. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is make happier, more productive team members. And that's a worthy mission. I believe in that mission. And I love being able to help out, fellow business owners on how to get more out of their team and keep them engaged.
You're speaking my language. I always say your employees are your greatest asset. They're also potentially your greatest liability. So we're all about how do we build employee assets. And I still think, we've got a long way to go in the SME market about realizing and investing in that asset so that you can really get the lift in productivity, profitability, all of the good stuff that can come from that investment.
100%. And I think one of the challenges as an SME is you are too busy working in the business. You're working alongside your employees and you see something that's not the best or needs work, and you think, I haven't got time for it now, I just need to get this done. It's very easy to fall in that trap of being too busy to look after your team and to understand how can I better motivate these people.
Which is great. How can people get in touch with you, Miles, if they'd like to learn more about 6Q? And I'm a huge fan of it.
Yes, certainly. We have a website, which is www.6q, that's the number 6 letter Q, .io. So the shortest website address we could possibly get. But I also welcome people to look at our blog, which you can get to from the front page there. We publish 1,500 word plus articles at least twice a week on lifting engagement, positive culture, those sort of things. We have a number of experts, including yourself, that have had articles posted on there. But you're also welcome to hit me up directly via email. It's just Miles, that's MILES, @6q.io.
Brilliant. Well, look, I love it. I think it's a fabulous tool, and I think businesses, and I know we do ours monthly, and the insights, I look forward to getting my report every month, and I can see trends within the month, you know, if things are happening. So I'm a huge advocate for it, and I think it gives information to managers that they would not otherwise have. So thank you very much for coming and speaking with us today, and I'm hoping lots of people are going to get in touch with you.
My pleasure, Natasha. It's been a great opportunity to chat face to face. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for that, Miles. Bye.